Hey, everybody, I've got Judge Ravi Sandill here. Judge Sandill, as you heard in the introduction, is a Harris County District Judge, and this is a real honor for me as a lawyer because Judge Sandill has been one of the leading jurists, one of the leading figures down at the courthouse in Harris County in putting together the efforts to try to keep the wheels of justice rolling during these very, very strange times we have. So, Judge, first of all, thank you for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing as well as can be. I want to thank you for having me. I've heard of Brian Beckcom for quite some time. I know you've had some cases in my court, but I think this is the first time we've actually sat down and talked.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because before we started this interview, of course, I was doing a little bit of research. And, if you're a lawyer in Harris County and you don't know who Judge Sandill is, you're not paying that much attention. But I learned some interesting things about your background. So before we get into some of the things that you and the other judges are doing in Harris County, why don't you tell us, the listeners who aren't lawyers, who may not know who you are, a little bit about, who you are, where you come from, a little bit about your background.
Well, I'll give you the abbreviated version. I can give you the long version later. But both my parents are immigrants. They both immigrated from India to Canada separately. I was actually born in Toronto. And then my dad immigrated to the States. My family immigrated to the States, where my brother was born in Philadelphia. And at that point, when I was, I want to say 6 or 7 years old, my dad joined the U.S. military. The Army first, and he spent a tour at Fort Hood in Texas, and then decided he wanted to switch over to the Air Force. And so I was an Air Force brat from that point until I graduated from high school. I went to high school in England, spent 3.5 years at Lake Heath American High School there, and then went on to UT. Did UT in 4 years. While I was there, I was involved in federal government, worked a little bit with Representative Doggett, worked with Senator Kerry at the time, who later became Secretary Kerry, and then did White House advance for the president and the First Lady, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, Senator Clinton. I was trying to figure out her title.
At the time.
And I did some work at the White House's Council of Economic Advisors as well while I was an undergrad, and then came to law school, continued doing my advanced work for President Clinton, and then after graduating, clerked for a year with Justice Cohen at the First Court of Appeals, and then went into private practice, and then that's when my life sort of went off script, and I was diagnosed with cancer about 3 months into my practice. Did a first-line treatment for about 8 months, relapsed, and had a stem cell transplant. And then, got back on the horse about 4 to 6 months later, continued my practice. And then in 2007, I was asked to run locally on the Democratic ticket for a judicial spot. And, there hadn't been a Democrat elected in Harris County since 1994.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you this, I went to my judge who was elected, the last time he was elected was as a Republican, and I asked him what he thought. He said, listen, Ravi, he goes, they're asking you today, if for some reason the Democrats win and you're not on that ticket, they're not going to ask you again. And I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment or what that is, Judge, but he goes, and so I decided to run and, was elected in 2008 in November. And, became a judge at the age of 32. It was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I'll bet. So let's break that down just a little bit. So my father was in the Air Force too, and I moved around quite a bit growing up. I was born in Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, and lived in upstate New York where my brother was born, and then lived on the Guam Islands for about 6 months because my dad was flying B-52s over Vietnam, and then lived in Kansas, and then Carswell Air Force Base Fort Worth. So we moved around quite a bit. I chose A&M over Texas, although I did go to trade school in Austin. I tell people I went to trade school.